I sent a fake cop to shop my brother at our lake cabin, didn't know he's a sitting senator. It was supposed to be a calm and quiet weekend getaway, just me and my brother at our family's lake cabin, nestled deep in the woods, far away from the chaos of the city. The water sparkled like glass under the sun, the birds chirped in rhythm, and for the first time, in what felt like ages, my brother looked truly relaxed. It wasn't just a vacation, it was an escape. He'd been dealing with non-stop pressure from the political world, long meetings, heated debates, and public appearances. But here, he didn't want to be Senator Walker, just wanted to be my big brother. He even laughed and told me not to mention who he was to anyone around. Out here, he said, I'm off duty. We grilled, fished, and spent the first evening telling old stories by the fire. But the next morning brought a shift. Around 10 a.m., a woman in a bright orange vest and a faded baseball cap drove up to our property line in a squeaky golf cart. She had a laminated badge that read, HOA, Community Watch. Though the cabin had never been part of any homeowners association, she didn't smile or say hello. She jumped straight to confrontation. Why are you two on this land? She snapped, holding her clipboard like a weapon. I calmly explained that we owned the cabin. My brother even showed her a deed copy from his phone, but she didn't seem to care. I've lived around this lake 14 years and never seen either of you, she said. You better not be squatting. You don't take kindly to strangers. My brother stayed polite, but her tone turned threatening. Before she left, she said, if you know what's good for you, you'll leave before things get messy. Brushed it off at first, thinking she was just a nosy local drunk on some fake authority. But I noticed my brother's smile fade. Later that day, we spotted her driving by 3 more times, circling like a vulture. That evening, we found a crumpled note shoved under the door. Asterisk, you've been warned. You don't belong here. There were no initials, no name, just a threat. I wanted to call the sheriff immediately, but my brother held me back. Let's stay calm, he said, but his eyes said otherwise. Something about the whole situation wasn't sitting right. He made a phone call from the porch, speaking in a hushed tone. I heard him say, it's probably nothing, but I want someone watching just in case. That's when I realized he was worried too, but he had ways of protecting us I didn't fully understand. We tried to sleep that night, but the peace we came for was long gone. We didn't know it yet, but things were about to take a violent, terrifying turn, and the woman in the golf cart was just the beginning. The next morning, everything felt colder even though the sun was out. There was a new kind of tension in the air, something that made me glance over my shoulder every time. I stepped outside. When I opened the cabin door, a piece of paper fluttered to the ground. It was handwritten in large, shaky letters. You were warned. Leave by sunset or face consequences. That was it. No signature, no name. It's just a direct threat. Shoved in our faces. I stormed back inside and showed my brother, my hands shaking with anger, but he didn't flinch. He read it silently, then calmly folded it in half and placed it on the table like it was just another piece of junk mail. We're not going anywhere, he said. I was already dialing the sheriff's office. The deputy I spoke with seemed confused. He checked their records and said they had no complaints filed against us. No known HOA patrols. Nothing. You're not even in an HOA district, he said. That cabin's on private, unincorporated land? I thanked him, but his answer only made things worse. If no real HOA had authority here, who was that woman? What power did she think she had? And more importantly, what was she planning next? My brother stepped outside to make a call, walking toward the woods for privacy. I didn't hear much, but I caught fragments, monitoring the area. Just in case. Stay ready. That evening, around 5 o'clock, the woman came back. This time she didn't bother pretending to be nice. She marched right up to our porch with her phone out, snapping pictures of our vehicles and even my brother through the cabin window. She shouted something about unauthorized occupancy and noise complaints, even though we'd barely said a word all day. She had a new stack of papers, printed rules, fines, citations, all of them fake. They were filled with nonsense about communal peace zones and quiet time violations. I looked at the paper and said, none of this applies here. She sneered and said, you're not going to make it through the weekend. She left without another word, and I watched her disappear down the gravel road in that squeaky old golf cart. But something else happened later that sent a chill down my spine. Around 7 p.m., a black SUV pulled off the road and parked just beyond the trees. It sat there with its lights off. There was a man inside dressed like a cop, but there were no department patches, no visible badge number, no official markings. He just sat, watching the cabin, like he was waiting for something. I showed my brother, and all he said was, "That's not a real officer." His voice was quiet, serious. He pulled out his phone again, this time texting someone directly. I saw his expression harden. "This is getting dangerous," he said. When my brother looked worried, I knew we were in real trouble. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle of the trees outside had my nerves on edge. I kept peeking through the blinds, and sure enough, the black SUV was still there in gin off, just sitting in the dark like a predator waiting to pounce. Around 3 a.m., I heard a sharp knock on the door, then another. Then it turned into loud, aggressive pounding. A man's voice barked, "Open up! Law enforcement. We have reports of trespassers on the property." My heart jumped into my throat. I rushed toward the door, but my brother grabbed my arm and pulled me back. His face was calm but focused. "He's not real," he said firmly. "Stay low." He moved quickly, retrieving a secure lockbox from under his bed and opening it to reveal a small, legally registered sidearm. He wasn't panicked. He was prepared. The pounding grew louder until, with a brutal kick, the door flew open. The man from the SUV stepped inside, dressed in a dark tactical outfit with no department name, just a metal badge clipped to his belt and a handgun drawn in front of him. He shouted again, on the ground, "You're trespassing." But instead of panicking, my brother stepped forward slowly, hands visible, posture steady. He looked the man directly in the eye and said in a voice that was suddenly full of authority, "Do you know who you just pointed a gun at?" The man hesitated, confused. My brother continued, "I am Senator Walker. You just committed a felony." The fake cop's eyes widened. He clearly hadn't expected that. And just as quickly, flashing lights flooded the woods outside. 2 black SUVs pulled up behind him, and within seconds, real federal agents stormed. "In, weapons drawn, drop your weapon," they commanded. The man dropped it without argument and dropped to his knees, now completely exposed for what he was. The agents cuffed him and pulled him outside while others swept the area. One of them approached my brother and gave a short nod. "We've been tracking these impersonators. Didn't know they'd show up here," he said. I stood frozen, still trying to process what had just happened. Within 10 minutes, a full team of real law enforcement officers had taken over the property. The fake officer was put in a federal vehicle, and not long after, the HOA woman herself was brought in. She screamed and cried, insisting she didn't. No, he'd go that far that she just wanted those people gone. But the investigation revealed she had paid him to scare us off, never realizing my brother was one of the most powerful lawmakers in the country. As dawn broke, the calm lake didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like a place that had just witnessed something deadly and illegal. And yet, somehow, through composure and quiet strength, my brother had stayed one step ahead. I had always admired him, but that night, I understood the kind of man he really was. By sunrise, the quiet lakeside had turned into something out of a crime drama. Flashing lights from patrol cars lit up the woods, and yellow tape began to circle our once peaceful cabin. The fake cop had already been taken into custody, silently, sitting in the back of a black SUV with his head down. But it was the woman from the HOA, the self-appointed enforcer, who caused the most stir. She was handcuffed and sobbing uncontrollably, trying to convince every officer within earshot that she never meant for it to go that far. It was just to scare them, she cried. He wasn't supposed to bring a real gun, but her words didn't matter anymore. The agents had already uncovered the payment. Trail direct transfers to a disgraced former security guard, known for impersonating law enforcement and intimidating so-called trespassers in private communities. She had hired him with full intent to remove us by force. What she didn't know was that my brother wasn't just any cabin guest. He was a sitting United States senator. And the moment she crossed that line, it wasn't just a neighborhood issue anymore. It became a federal one. Media crews started showing up within hours. Drones buzzed overhead. Porters and windbreakers jogged up the gravel path, shouting questions as soon as they spotted my brother. He stayed composed, even as our names and faces were blasted across every morning news segment. When asked for a comment, my brother stepped forward and simply said, "When private citizens start using fake power and violence to push people off their own land, it's no longer just a local dispute. That's not how democracy works. That's not how America works." That one line was enough to make headlines. Within days, a formal investigation into the HOA structure was launched. Turns out it wasn't even a legal HOA, just a group of aggressive residents who'd formed their own rulebook and bullied anyone who didn't fit their mold. Their board was disbanded by county order, their authority revoked, and lawsuits followed. But even as justice was served, I couldn't stop thinking about how close we came to tragedy. If my brother hadn't kept calm, if he hadn't had the foresight to call for federal surveillance ahead of time, I don't know what would have happened. I looked at him differently after that. I always knew he was smart, respected, powerful, but that weekend showed me something deeper. He didn't just carry a title, he carried responsibility, quietly, fiercely. And when the moment came to choose between hiding or standing tall, he chose to face it head on, not with rage, but with restraint and strategy. As we packed up and left the lake cabin behind, I realized we weren't just going home. We were walking away from a place that tried to silence us and failed. My brother wasn't just my sibling anymore. He was a reminder that real power doesn't shout, it acts. When it matters most,